Ladies and gentlemen, this is TVP World. You're watching another edition of Military Mind, bringing you news from the front lines. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Today, we take a closer look at what is happening on the Ukrainian front and where both sides have reinforced their positions ahead of the winter period. The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrskyi, explained why Ukrainian forces were forced to withdraw from Siversk. Now, according to Syrskyi, Ukrainian infantry units were left without sufficient cover, making continued defense inside the city impossible. He noted that Serebrensk Forest and the Siversk area have a long history of heavy fighting even during World War II, which is why the terrain is filled with old fortifications and consists largely of dominant high ground. For a long time, the Siversk sector was not a priority as Russian forces lacked the capability to conduct a full-scale offensive there. Ukrainian brigades were deployed in the area, but the intensity of fighting was lower compared to the other fronts. Combats largely involved sabotage groups, infantry clashes, and special operations forces. However, the situation changed after Russia concentrated drone units using fiber-optic-controlled systems, some with ranges exceeding 20 kilometers. Now, this forced Ukrainian drone crews and support units to gradually pull back deeper, leaving infantry positions exposed. Under these conditions, Syrskyi said, defending the city became untenable. The Ukrainian command decided it was unacceptable to leave soldiers in Siversk facing likely death, and a decision was made to withdraw to higher ground, which offers better defensive conditions. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have denied Russian claims of a full control over the city of Donetsk in the Donetsk region. According to Ukraine's eastern group of forces, these claims are false and aimed at creating the illusion of Russian advances. Ukrainian military officials say Russian forces are using a familiar tactic. Small infantry groups infiltrate settlements to briefly raise Russian flags, record it on camera, and withdraw. In most cases, these groups are eliminated by Ukrainian defenders, though sometimes they do manage to film the flag before being neutralized. The Eastern Group of Forces reports that search and destroy operations against Russian assault groups are ongoing inside Donetsk, and defensive fighting continues around the city. The Institute for the Study of War also confirms that Ukrainian troops remain active in northern Donetsk, demonstrating Ukraine's continued operational presence in the area. According to the Institute estimates, Russian forces captured about 4,700 square kilometers in the year 2025. Even Russia's own inflated claim of 6,300 square kilometers would represent just over 1% of Ukraine's total territory, underscoring the limited scale of Russian territorial gains despite extensive military efforts. A recent Russian strike on Sloviansk was yet another example of deliberate terror against the civilian population. Russian troops targeted a private residential area of the city, causing extensive damage. More than 24 houses were affected by the attack. A woman was trapped under the rubble in one of them, where rescue workers quickly arrived and freed her from the remains of her destroyed home. Emergency services are now clearing the aftermath of the shelling, documenting the damage, and gathering information about the victims. Sloviansk has once again come under fire, and once again, a Russian strike has hit peaceful homes.
А где женщина под завалом?
Они разгребают уже там хлопцы. Вот так, заходи, я говорю, вот так зайдешь с той стороны. Тише, тише, тише. Да. Все, взяли. Вот. А ну ноги идет. Нормально. Все.
Operators of the Ukrainian 3rd Battalion's Svoboda UAVs detected an enemy MTLB attempting to break through to Ukrainian positions. The vehicle was moving quickly and with an element of surprise, but was targeted as it approached. One precise strike from a Ukrainian FPV drone ended the Russian breakthrough attempt before it could even begin. The enemy vehicle was stopped and destroyed, and the threat to Ukrainian position was eliminated. Moving on, Ukrainian drone operators of the Harpia Battalion are carrying out targeted and calculated operations against Russian infantry near the village of Dobropilya in Zaporizhia. Aerial reconnaissance tracked enemy movements, followed by the launch of strike UAVs with no unnecessary noise, just precise calculations and split-second decisions. Each sortie disrupts Russian plans, and each hit means one less attempt to advance. The morning of December 20, 2025 began with an explosion for Russian troops in the temporarily occupied city of Melitopol. A powerful blast rocked the industrial zone, which the invaders have been systematically using as a rear base, ammunition depot, and vehicle parking lot. At the moment of the explosion, the occupiers were loading a Ural military truck. That was also when the highest concentration of personnel was observed near the vehicle, and as a result, at least 4 Russian soldiers were seriously injured and several others were disoriented by the shockwave. The truck was damaged, and its continued use is now in question. The industrial zone of Melitopol has long been one of the key rear hubs for the occupying forces, and at the same time in an area of increased risk. The latest explosion clearly shows that even the deep rear is no longer safe for the invaders. And with that footage, we conclude this edition of Military Mind. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.